The throne room of Prime stretched out like a cathedral of conquest. Queen sat on her ancient throne, her crimson scales catching the light from 1,000 captured stars that powered the imperial palace. She had ruled the empire for 200 years, and in that time she had never known defeat. Her empire controlled 847 star systems. Her military crushed anyone who stood against them. Today should have been another simple victory. Admiral stood before her throne, his 4 arms clasped behind his back in military fashion. He was one of her most decorated officers, a veteran of 50 campaigns. But today, something was different. Today, he looked nervous. "Speak," Queen commanded. Her voice echoed through the vast chamber. "Your Majesty," began, "the humans have rejected our ultimatum. They refuse to surrender Earth and their colony worlds." The Queen's lips curled into something like amusement. Humans, such a young species. They had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years. Their technology was primitive compared to power. Their fleet numbered less than 1,000 ships. The Armada could field 10 times that number. "Then we will take their worlds by force," she said simply. "Prepare the invasion fleet. I want—" "Your Majesty," interrupted, then immediately looked like he regretted it. No one interrupted the Queen. "There is something you should know. Intelligence reports say that the humans have activated Commander Jinwoo." The temperature in the throne room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Queen's claws extended, digging deep grooves into the metal armrests of her throne. Those armrests were made from the hull of the first ship her ancestors had ever conquered over 3,000 years ago. They had survived countless wars. Now they bore fresh scars. Every member of the War Council fell silent. Generals who had faced death without flinching now looked at each other with wide eyes. Even the royal guards, trained from birth to show no emotion, shifted uncomfortably. They all knew that name. Across the galaxy, in the command center of the Human Defense Coalition on Earth, Captain stood at attention. She was 32 years old and had graduated top of her class from the military academy. She had commanded 3 successful defensive actions against pirate raids. She thought she had seen enough to prepare her for anything. She was wrong. The orders in her hand seemed impossible. She would serve as tactical liaison for the legendary commander who had been brought out of retirement. Commander Jinwoo, the hero of New Seoul, the man who had held off 200 ships with a single frigate for 71 days. Every cadet studied his campaigns. The siege of where he defended a colony with no ammunition left. The impossible retreat from Andromeda Gate where he saved 40,000 civilians from certain death. The Battle of the Shattered Moon where he turned a defeat into humanity's greatest victory. Had memorized every tactical decision he had made. She knew his strategies better than she knew her own family history. But knowing the legend and meeting the man were 2 very different things. The briefing room door opened. Admiral entered first, his gray hair and stern face familiar too. Behind him walked a man in a simple uniform with no decorations. He was perhaps 50 years old, with tired eyes and quiet movements. He looked like someone who could be anybody's uncle or father. This was Jinwoo. Felt a strange disappointment. She had expected someone larger than life, someone who radiated power and confidence. Instead, she saw a tired man who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The briefing began. Admiral displayed the tactical situation on the holographic table. It was grim. The fleet numbered over 10,000 warships. Their technology was superior. Their soldiers were bred for war from birth. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. Humanity could muster 800 ships. Most of them were patrol vessels and converted cargo haulers. Only 200 were actual military warships. "The outer colonies are already evacuating," Admiral explained. "We estimate we have 3 weeks before the fleet reaches the inner systems, 4 weeks until they reach Earth." The other officers around the table looked pale. Some stared at the holographic display like they were watching their own deaths approach. One colonel was shaking slightly. Jinwoo said nothing. He simply watched the display, his eyes moving from one ship position to another. His face showed no emotion. Commander finally spoke up, her voice steadier than she felt. "What's our strategy? We can't win a direct battle. The numbers are impossible." Jinwoo looked at her for the first time. His eyes were dark and calm like deep water. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "Captain, when have humans ever had good numbers?" He turned to the display and zoomed in on the outer colonies. "Admiral, how many civilians are still evacuating?" "About 2 million across 7 colonies," replied. "Then we buy them time." Jinwoo's finger traced paths on the holographic map. "They expect us to defend our worlds, to stand and fight, to die with honor protecting our homes." "And we won't?" asked a general whose name didn't know. Jinwoo smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much war and learned too many hard lessons. "We will defend our homes, but not the way they expect." He looked around the table, meeting each officer's eyes. "They have won every war through overwhelming power. They have so many ships, so many soldiers, that they have forgotten how to fight any other way. They come like a hammer, expecting us to be the nail." "So what do we do?" asked. "We become water," Jinwoo said simply. "You cannot hammer water, Captain. It flows around you. It finds every crack. It wears down stone itself, given enough time." The room was silent. Some officers looked confused, others looked thoughtful. Admiral smiled slightly. He had served with Jinwoo 20 years ago. He understood. "You want to use hit-and-run tactics," the Admiral said. "I want to make them afraid," Jinwoo corrected. "They have more ships, better weapons, superior numbers, but we have something they don't." He paused. "We have nothing to lose except everything, and that makes us dangerous." Felt something stir in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. She looked at this quiet, tired man and began to understand why the Queen had trembled at his name. "When do we begin?" she asked. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display again, at the red icons representing thousands of enemy ships advancing toward human space like a crimson tide. "We already have," he said. "Send the signal. Operation Scattered Stars is now active." Across human space, 800 ships began to move, not together, not as a fleet, but as separate hunting packs, each one preparing to become a ghost in the darkness between stars. The war had begun. And somewhere in her throne room, Queen sat alone after dismissing her council. She stared at nothing, remembering a battle 20 years ago, remembering a single human ship that had destroyed 47 of her vessels, remembering the name that still haunted her empire's nightmares. Jinwoo. 20 years earlier, Jinwoo had been a different man, younger, less certain. He commanded the frigate, a small patrol ship assigned to protect the mining colony of New Seoul. It was a quiet posting on the edge of human space, the kind of assignment given to promising officers who needed experience but not danger. The colony held 50,000 people, miners mostly, with their families. They extracted rare elements from the asteroid field that surrounded the small planet. Good people doing hard work far from home. Jinwoo's job was to keep them safe from pirates and check cargo manifests. Nothing exciting ever happened at New Seoul, until the day 200 warships appeared in the system. Jinwoo had been having coffee with his pilot, Yang, when the sensors screamed their warning. They both rushed to the bridge. The engineer, Bin, was already at her station, her face pale as she looked at the tactical display. "Commander," she said quietly, "I'm reading 200 contacts, all military signatures." Jinwoo felt his stomach drop. 200 ships. There was a frigate. It had 6 missile tubes and 2 plasma cannons. It was designed to fight pirates, not armadas. "Get me the colony administrator," he ordered. Mira's face appeared on the screen. She was 60 years old and had run New Seoul for 15 years. She looked tired but calm. "I see them, Commander," she said before he could speak. "I'm ordering an evacuation, but we need at least 3 days to get everyone to the transports." "How long until the nearest human defense fleet can get here?" Jinwoo asked his communications officer, Dong. 3 weeks, sir, minimum." 3 weeks. They needed 3 days just to evacuate, and they would attack in hours, not weeks. Jinwoo looked at his crew. Yang was 25, the best pilot Jinwoo had ever seen. Bin was 30, could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Dong was the youngest at 22, fresh from the academy. Their weapons officer, Young, was a veteran who had seen combat against pirates. 5 people, 1 small ship, against 200 warships. "Sir," Yang said quietly, "we should evacuate too, get on the transports with the civilians. No one would blame us." Jinwoo considered it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he shook his head. "If we run, they'll destroy the transports before they can jump to faster-than-light speed. Someone has to buy time for the evacuation." He looked at each crew member in turn. "I'm staying, but I'm not ordering you to stay with me. Anyone who wants to evacuate, go now. No shame in it." No one moved. Bin spoke first. "My sister lives in that colony with her kids. I'm not leaving." "I didn't join the military to run from a fight," Young said. Dong just shook his head, staying at his station. Yang grinned, though it looked forced. "Someone has to keep this bucket flying, Commander. Might as well be me." Jinwoo felt pride and terror in equal measure. These people were about to die because of him, because he had asked them to do the impossible. "All right," he said. "Bin, I need you to make our sensor signature look bigger. Yang, take us into the asteroid field. If we're going to survive even an hour, we need to become invisible." The commander was called Axe. He had conquered 12 systems for the Empire. He had never lost a battle. When his sensors detected 1 small human frigate, he laughed. "1 ship," he told his bridge crew. "They defend their colony with 1 ship. This will take less than a day." He was wrong. Jinwoo used the asteroid field like a 3-dimensional maze. That was small enough to slip between asteroids that would crush larger ships. He hid in sensor shadows. He created false signatures that made 1 ship look like 12. When squadrons came hunting, Jinwoo would ambush them from unexpected angles, fire a few missiles, then vanish before they could respond. He targeted supply ships and communication relays. He made the paranoid, seeing enemies everywhere. On the second day, Axe sent 50 ships to sweep the asteroid field. Jinwoo lured them into a narrow tunnel through one of the larger asteroids. It was an old mining passage, barely wide enough for ships to fit single file. Bin had spent all night rigging explosives along the tunnel walls. When the ships were deep inside, Jinwoo gave the order. Bin triggered the charges. The tunnel collapsed, crushing 32 ships in seconds. By day 10, the evacuations were complete. Every civilian was safe. Mira sent Jinwoo a final message from her transport before jumping away. "Thank you, Commander. We'll tell everyone what you did here." "Tell them we held," Jinwoo replied. "That's all." He could have left then. The mission was complete, but Axe had become obsessed with destroying the. He had lost 40 ships to a single human frigate. His pride demanded revenge. And Jinwoo realized something important. Every day he kept the here, distracted and angry, was another day they weren't attacking other human colonies. So he stayed, and the battle continued. Day 30, day 40, day 50. It was falling apart. Hull breaches were patched with whatever materials they could salvage. The weapons systems ran on backup power. They were down to 20 missiles and enough fuel for maybe 2 more days of combat. Bin worked miracles keeping the ship functional. Yang flew patterns that should have been impossible. Young made every shot count. Dong managed to hack communications and feed them false information. But they were dying slowly. Everyone knew it. On day 70, Bin called Jinwoo to the engineering section. Her face was grim. "Commander, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." She showed him her calculations. She could overload the reactor in a controlled way, turn it into a massive bomb. If they could get close enough to a large group of ships, the explosion would take out dozens of them. "It's suicide," Jinwoo said flatly. "It's victory," Bin corrected. "The defense fleet will be here in a week. If we can cripple enough of the fleet, the colony will be safe. Humanity will be safe. There has to be another way." Bin smiled sadly. "There isn't, sir, and we both know it." She paused. "I want to do this, let me." Jinwoo wanted to refuse, wanted to find any other option, but he couldn't. She was right. On day 71, they made their final run. Yang flew directly at the carrier group, 30 massive ships, including Axe's flagship. Thinking the humans were finally making a desperate last stand, all converged to deliver the killing blow. Jinwoo, Yang, Dong, and Young evacuated in the emergency escape pods. Bin stayed behind. "Tell my sister I love her," she said over the comm. "Tell her I was brave." "You're the bravest person I've ever known," Jinwoo replied, his voice breaking. Bin triggered the overload. They exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that consumed 32 ships, including Axe's flagship. When the human defense fleet arrived a week later, they found the wreckage of 83 ships and the remaining fleet in full retreat. They found 4 escape pods with 3 survivors, and the body of Engineer Bin still strapped into her station on a section of the hull that had somehow survived. The Battle of New Seoul became legend. 1 ship, 5 crew members, 71 days against 200. The Empire's first defeat in centuries. And Jinwoo became the man that made empires afraid. But he never forgot the price. He carried Bin's military ID tag for the next 20 years, a reminder that every victory in war means someone doesn't come home. That was why, when Captain looked at him and saw a tired man, she was seeing the truth. Jinwoo wasn't a hero. He was just someone who had learned to win when winning should have been impossible. And now he had to do it again. Queen stood before her war council with cold fury in her eyes. The defeat at New Seoul 20 years ago had been an embarrassment. A fluke. One lucky human who got fortunate against an overconfident commander. That was what she had told herself. But now the humans dared to refuse her ultimatum. Now they thought they could stand against the full might of the Empire. This could not be tolerated. "Bring me Commander," she commanded. Was the greatest living military commander. He had conquered 18 systems without losing a single battle. He was methodical, brilliant, and ruthless. Where Axe had been arrogant, was careful. Where Axe had underestimated his enemy, studied them obsessively. He entered the throne room with perfect military bearing. His scales were darker than most, almost black, marked with battle scars from 100 campaigns. "Your Majesty," he said, kneeling before the throne, "I am giving you the largest fleet ever assembled, 15,000 warships, every resource you need. You will crush the humans, you will break their spirit, and you will bring me the head of Commander Jinwoo." His eyes flickered at the name, but his voice remained steady. "It will be done, Your Majesty." "See that it is," the Queen said coldly. "Axe failed because he was a fool. You are not a fool, prove it." Spent 3 months studying every battle Jinwoo had ever fought. He analyzed the tactics used at New Seoul. He reviewed the siege of and the Battle of the Shattered Moon. He looked for patterns, for weaknesses, for anything he could exploit. What he found disturbed him. Jinwoo never fought the same way twice. He adapted to every situation. He turned weaknesses into strengths, but also found something useful. Jinwoo always protected civilians first. Always. That compassion could be used against him. The Armada entered human space like a crimson wave. 15,000 ships moving in perfect formation. The outer colonies never had a chance. Frontier Station fell in 6 hours. The human defenders fought hard but were overwhelmed. 3,000 colonists were taken prisoner, gave them good treatment, made sure the news spread. He wanted the humans to know that surrender meant survival. New Harmony Colony evacuated before they arrived. Smart, but it meant abandoning their homes, their infrastructure, everything they had built. Let them go. Every refugee was another mouth for humanity to feed, another burden on their resources. On Earth, panic spread like fire. News channels showed endless streams of refugees. Politicians screamed at each other in the assembly. Some demanded they surrender to save lives. Others called for a fight to the death. The Human Defense Coalition was fracturing. Captain watched the chaos from the Fleet Command Center. They had 800 ships scattered across human space, against 15,000. The math was impossible. "Sir," she said to Jinwoo, who stood calmly studying star charts, "the people are afraid. They think we've already lost." "Fear is useful," Jinwoo replied without looking up. "Angry people make mistakes, afraid people run, but desperate people fight." "And which are we?" Jinwoo finally looked at her. "We're human, Captain, we're all three." He activated the holographic display and showed her his plan. It made her stomach drop. "We're going to divide our fleet?" she asked in disbelief. "Sir, our only advantage is that we can concentrate our forces at key points. If we scatter, if we concentrate, they'll surround us and destroy us," Jinwoo interrupted. "Is an axe. He won't chase one ship around asteroids. He'll bring overwhelming force to bear and crush us." He zoomed in on the star map. "But if we're everywhere and nowhere, if we're smoke in his hands, he can't use that advantage." Admiral entered the command center, looking exhausted. "The Council is demanding answers, Commander. They want to know our strategy." "Tell them we're buying time," Jinwoo said. "That's all they need to know." What followed was a campaign unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Jinwoo divided the human fleet into 40 separate battle groups, each with 20 ships. They operated independently, striking at different points along the advance. Captain led Battle Group 7, 12 frigates and 8 corvettes. Her mission was to harass Supply Line Alpha, which fed Advance fleet. They struck at night if space could have night. They appeared from behind a gas giant, destroyed 3 supply vessels, and vanished before the escorts could respond. 6 hours later, they hit a different point on the same supply line, 200 million kilometers away. They sent a squadron to hunt them, led them on a chase through an asteroid field, then disappeared. The squadron wasted 2 days searching for ghosts. Meanwhile, Battle Group 12 attacked a communication relay. Battle Group 25 hit a refueling station. Battle Group 3 ambushed a troop transport. Found himself commanding 15,000 ships that couldn't bring their power to bear. Every time he concentrated forces to crush a human battle group, they scattered like mist. Every time he spread out to cover more territory, they struck at his weakest points. Supply lines were cut. Communication became unreliable. Isolated squadrons found themselves ambushed by forces that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. Howe demanded of his tactical officer, "How are they moving so fast? How do they know where to strike?" The answer was simple: they didn't know. Each battle group operated on its own initiative, following one simple rule: cause chaos. It didn't matter if the attacks were coordinated. It only mattered that they were constant. For 6 months, the campaign continued. They captured only 3 minor colonies. They lost over 2,000 ships to hit-and-run attacks. Perfect Advance had become a grinding stalemate. On Earth, the panic began to change. People stopped talking about surrender. They saw the news reports of tiny human forces striking at the massive fleet. They saw that the impossible was becoming possible. Jinwoo never left the command center. He slept 4 hours a night. He reviewed every battle report, every casualty list, every tactical decision. The weight of command was visible in the lines on his face, in his tired eyes. Captain returned to base after 3 months of raiding operations. Her ships were damaged but intact. She had lost 12 people from her battle group. Not a single ship had been destroyed. "You look terrible, sir," she said to Jinwoo, then immediately regretted her informality. Jinwoo just smiled. "You look pretty rough yourself, Captain. Good work on Supply Line Alpha. They are having food shortages because of you." "It doesn't feel like enough," she admitted. "We're hurting them, but we're not winning. They still have 13,000 ships. We're down to 700. War isn't always about winning, Captain. Sometimes it's about not losing until the enemy makes a mistake." Jinwoo pulled up the tactical display, and is about to make one. He showed her the fleet positions. After 6 months of frustration, was pulling back from Haven's Reach, a strategic colony world. It looked like a retreat. "It's a trap," said immediately. "Of course it's a trap," Jinwoo agreed. "He wants us to commit forces to retake Haven's Reach. Then he'll surround us and finally bring his superior numbers to bear in a decisive battle. So we avoid it." "No," Jinwoo said, his eyes gleaming with something dangerous. "We spring the trap, but on our terms, not his." He explained his plan. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was exactly the kind of thing that had made him a legend. "Sir," said slowly, "if this doesn't work, we'll lose half our fleet in one battle." "And if it does work," Jinwoo replied, "we'll break spine." He looked at her seriously. "I won't lie to you, Captain. This is desperate, but desperate is what we do best." Orders went out across human space. Battle groups began to converge, not on Haven's Reach, but on something else entirely. Watched his sensors and allowed himself a smile. The humans were taking the bait. Finally, he would have his decisive battle. Finally, he would prove that tactics and courage meant nothing against overwhelming force. He had no idea that Jinwoo wasn't planning to fight for Haven's Reach at all. The real target was himself. Captain led her battle group toward Haven's Reach with orders that made her hands shake. She was bait. Obvious, visible bait meant to draw us attention while Jinwoo prepared the real attack. "Make it look good," Jinwoo had told her. "He needs to believe you're committing to retake the colony, but don't get close enough to actually engage. I need you alive for what comes after." Easy to say. Harder to do when 300 warships turned to intercept her small force. "All ships maintain formation," she broadcast to her group. "Sensors active, we want them to see us." The ships moved to surround her, kept her voice calm even though her heart was racing. "Helm, prepare for emergency jump. Weapons, fire at will, then we're gone." Her ships launched missiles, forcing them to respond defensively. Then's battle group jumped to faster-than-light speed, vanishing before the trap could close. Watch from his flagship, the Crimson Fang. "The humans are more cautious than I expected, but they'll try again. They want Haven's Reach. It's too valuable to abandon." His tactical officer nodded. "Should we pursue them, Commander?" "No, let them come to us. They'll make a mistake eventually." What didn't know was that, while he was focused on Haven's Reach, Jinwoo was preparing something impossible. The Indomitable was Jinwoo's flagship. It wasn't the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was tough. More importantly, it had the best crew. The pilot, Na, was the daughter of Yang, Jinwoo's pilot from 20 years ago. She had inherited her father's skill and added her own genius to it. "Commander," Na said, studying her navigation charts, "this plan is crazy. The gravitational anomaly near its position should be impossible to navigate. The tidal forces would tear us apart." "Should be impossible," Jinwoo repeated, "but not actually impossible." Na grinned. "I didn't say that. Give me best shield modifications and I can thread us through, but it'll be like threading a needle while riding a lightning bolt." Engineer looked up from her console. "My shields will hold, probably, maybe. Don't make any sudden moves." Weapons Officer Sang-ho was checking his targeting systems for the 10th time. Even if we survive the jump, we'll be coming out right in the middle of 3,000 ships. Our surprise won't last long. It only needs to last long enough, Jinwoo said calmly. The plan was simple in concept, impossible in execution. The Indomitable and 400 human ships would use the gravitational anomaly as a shortcut. They would emerge directly beneath defensive formation, in the one blind spot that sensors couldn't properly cover. Then they would strike directly at its flagship. Admiral had argued against it. If we lose you and 400 ships, we lose the war. We only have 700 total. If we don't break here, we lose anyway, Jinwoo had replied. He's adapting to our tactics. Give him another 6 months and he'll have counters for everything we do. We need a decisive victory now. So now, the Indomitable led 400 ships toward a gravitational anomaly that physics said should kill them all. Nu's hands flew across her controls, entering the anomaly in 3, 2, 1. The universe twisted. Gravity pulled in 17 different directions at once. The ship's hull groaned. Alarms screamed. Rerouted power to the shields, keeping them intact through sheer force of will and engineering brilliance. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 hours, they traveled through hell. Then they were through. The Indomitable and 400 human ships emerged directly beneath the defensive formation around its flagship. For 5 perfect seconds, they had no idea they were there. Fire, Jinwoo commanded. 400 ships opened fire simultaneously. Missiles and plasma beams lanced upward into the unprotected undersides of warships. Dozens of ships exploded before they even knew they were under attack. Chaos erupted. Carefully positioned fleets scrambled to respond, but their formations were designed to defend against attacks from ahead and the sides, not from below. Ships collided with each other trying to reposition. Communication channels became cluttered with confused orders. All ships drive for the center, Jinwoo broadcast. Target is the Crimson Fang. Everything else is secondary. The human fleet pushed forward like a spear aimed at the heart of the formation. They were outnumbered 8-1 even in this surprise attack. Every second, more ships joined the battle. But they were disorganized, confused, trying to fight an enemy they hadn't expected. Nuflu the Indomitable like it was an extension of her body. She dodged between battleships, used their own ships as shields, found gaps that shouldn't exist. Sang-ho fired with absolute precision. Every shot counted. Every missile found a target. He wasn't trying to destroy ships. He was trying to disable them, create obstacles, force them to waste time maneuvering around crippled vessels. Held the shields together through damage that should have destroyed them 3 times over. She rerouted power from life support, from non-essential systems, from her own quarters. "I'm not going to die before I see face when we win," she muttered. The battle was chaos. Human ships exploded, ships burned. The space around the Crimson Fang became a graveyard. But the Indomitable kept pushing forward, getting closer, closer. Finally, they came alongside its flagship. Jinwoo opened a communication channel. He could see on the screen his dark scales reflecting the emergency lights on his bridge. The commander looked shocked, then angry, then something else. Respect, maybe, or fear. "Commander," Jinwoo said calmly, as if they were having tea instead of fighting for their lives. "You have 10 seconds to order your fleet to stand down." His eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing, human. Even with this surprise, you can't win. My ships outnumber yours 8-1. You'll all die here." 7, Jinwoo counted. 6. "You're insane." 5-4. Looked at his tactical display. The human ships were being destroyed one by one, but they were fighting with such ferocity, such determination. They knew they were dying. They didn't care. 3-2. "I won't surrender to an inferior species," roared. 1, Jinwoo nodded to fire. What happened next would be debated by military historians for generations. Had spent 6 months working on a weapon design that Bin had started 20 years ago. A reactor overload beam that could chain react through nearby ships. It was a weapon that violated every convention of warfare. It was a weapon that turned ships into bombs. It was a weapon born of desperation and genius. The Indomitable's forward cannon fired a beam of pure energy directly into the Crimson Fang's reactor core. The chain reaction was instantaneous. The Crimson Fang exploded, and the explosion triggered the reactors of every ship within 5 kilometers. Those explosions triggered more and more. In 30 seconds, 3,000 warships were crippled or destroyed. The blast wave hit the Indomitable, throwing everyone on the bridge to the floor. Emergency systems screamed. Hull breaches opened across 3 decks, but shields, pushed beyond any reasonable limit, held just barely enough to keep them alive. When the light faded, the tactical display showed a field of debris where the defensive formation had been. Survived long enough to send one final transmission. His bridge was on fire, his crew dead or dying around him. He looked directly into the camera, directly at Jinwoo. The human he really is. The transmission cut off as the Crimson Fang's remains finally broke apart. The remaining fleet, suddenly leaderless and scattered, began to retreat. The human fleet had lost 200 ships, half their force, but they had won. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jinwoo sat in his command chair, looking older than ever. "Casualty reports," he said quietly. The numbers came in. 20,000 human crew members dead, but the fleet was broken. Captain's voice came over the comm. "Sir, we've won. We actually won." Jinwoo closed his eyes. Victory always costs too much. "Get me Admiral and someone contact Queen. I think she'll want to talk." Queen watched the battle recordings in silence. Her throne room was empty. She had dismissed everyone. She needed to be alone for this. The holographic display showed the final moments of the battle. 3,000 of her ships destroyed in 30 seconds. Commander, her greatest military leader, dead. The pride of the fleet, shattered by a desperate human attack that should have failed. But it hadn't failed, because Jinwoo had led it. She replayed the recording again and again. Each time she tried to find the mistake, the moment where could have prevented disaster, but there was none. Jinwoo had given him no chance. The attack had been perfect. For the first time in her 200-year reign, Queen felt genuine fear, not fear of death. She was too old and powerful to fear that. Fear of something worse, defeat. Real, total, complete defeat. Her empire had 15,000 ships when the war began. Now she had less than 10,000, and they were scattered, demoralized, afraid. The humans had started with 800. They were down to 500, but those 500 had beaten her best commander. The mathematics were terrifying. If this trend continued, if Jinwoo kept winning impossible victories, the empire would bleed itself dry trying to conquer one small human civilization. She called for her council of elders. They arrived within the hour, 9 of the oldest and alive. They had advised her grandmother. They had seen empires rise and fall. "I want honest counsel," she told them. "Can we win this war?" The eldest, whose scales had turned white with age, spoke first. "Your Majesty, we can win any individual battle. Our technology is superior. Our ships are stronger. Our soldiers more experienced." "But," the Queen prompted. "But wars are not won by individual battles. They are won by will. And the humans have a will we do not understand." He paused. "We fight for glory, for conquest, for the empire. They fight for survival, for their homes, for each other. They will never stop fighting because stopping means death." Another elder added, "And they have Jinwoo. One human, Your Majesty, who has defeated us twice now. Twice he has done the impossible. How many more times can he do it? We cannot answer that question. And that uncertainty is dangerous." Are you saying we should surrender? The Queen's voice was ice. We are saying, the white-scaled elder replied carefully, that continuing this war may cost more than we can afford to lose. We have other enemies, Your Majesty, other threats. If we weaken ourselves fighting humans, what happens when the swarm returns? Or when the void creatures emerge from deep space? The Queen sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Arrange a meeting, neutral territory. I will speak with the humans myself. The council looked shocked. Your Majesty, you cannot. I can and I will, she interrupted. If we are to have peace, it must be a peace I make myself, one that I can sell to our people as strength, not weakness. The meeting took place on Station Harmony, a neutral trading post on the border between human and neutral space. The station cleared everyone except essential security and diplomatic staff. Captain accompanied Jinwoo as his military liaison. She wore her dress uniform, every decoration earned through blood and courage. But she felt small walking beside Jinwoo. He wore a simple commander's uniform with no medals at all. Shouldn't you wear your decorations, sir? She had asked before they left. Medals are for politicians and parades, Jinwoo had replied. I'm here to make peace, not impress anyone. They entered the diplomatic chamber. Queen was already there, seated across the table. She was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, her crimson scales gleaming under the lights. Her presence filled the room. Felt intimidated just looking at her. This was the ruler of an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. This was a being who commanded the loyalty of trillions. Jinwoo pulled out a chair and sat down like they were in a, Your Majesty, thank you for meeting with us. The Queen's eyes fixed on him. You are smaller than I expected, less impressive. I get that a lot, Jinwoo said without emotion. Shall we discuss terms? First, I must know something. The Queen leaned forward. How does your species, so young, so few, defeat us time and again? We have better ships, better weapons, superior numbers. By every measure, we should have crushed you. Yet here we sit, negotiating peace because I fear what you will do if we continue fighting. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Your Majesty, your empire conquers through strength. You have so much power that you've forgotten how to fight without it. You expect your enemies to stand and face you, to fight with honor, to follow rules. And you do not. We can't afford to, Jinwoo said simply. When you're outnumbered 10-1, honor gets you killed. When you have fewer ships, worse weapons, less experience, following the rules means you lose. So we learn to fight differently. We learn to be water instead of stone. To win through adaptation, through desperation, through sheer refusal to give up. He met her eyes steadily. You asked how we do it. We do it because we have to, because surrender has never been an option, because every human knows that if we lose everything. Our homes, our families, our future. That knowledge makes us dangerous in ways your empire has forgotten. The Queen was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I want peace, but I must be able to tell my people that we gained something from this war, that it was not a defeat. Then we'll give you something, Jinwoo said. Access to human medical technology. We're not as advanced in weapons, but our medicine is good. We've solved diseases that your people still suffer from. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. This was unexpected. Why would you offer this? Because peace is cheaper than war, Jinwoo said. And because maybe if your people are healthier, they'll be less interested in conquering their neighbors. They negotiated for 6 hours. In the end, the treaty was simple. The empire would withdraw from all human space and recognize humanity's sovereignty. They would pay reparations to colonies they had damaged. In exchange, humanity would provide medical technology and establish trade agreements. More importantly, both sides agreed to a non-aggression pact that would last 100 years. As the delegation prepared to leave, Queen stopped before Jinwoo one last time. Up close, could see that the Queen was old, ancient even. the kind of old that came with wisdom and weariness. "Tell me honestly, Commander," the Queen said quietly, "if we had not sued for peace, could you have one?" Jinwoo met her gaze steadily. His face showed nothing. "Your Majesty, the Indomitable is held together by hope and my engineer's genius. My fleet is exhausted. My people are afraid. If you had pressed the attack, if you had been willing to sacrifice another 10,000 ships," he paused. "I honestly don't know, but you would have paid such a terrible price for victory that it would have destroyed your empire anyway." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she did something had never seen her do. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. "You are a worthy opponent, Jinwoo. I am glad we will not be enemies anymore." 6 months later, Jinwoo retired for the second time. He returned to Earth, to a small farm in the countryside. He grew vegetables and occasionally taught classes at the military academy. Students came to hear him speak, hopping to learn the secrets of his victories. Officers asked him for tactical advice. Politicians wanted his endorsement. He turned them all away. But when young cadets came, genuinely wanting to learn, he would sit with them and talk. Not about tactics or strategy, but about something more important. "The greatest weapon humanity has," he told them, "isn't our ships or our weapons. It's our refusal to give up, even when the universe tells us we should. Every human who has ever achieved something impossible did it by refusing to accept that it was impossible." He would show them Bin's military ID tag, which he still carried. "But remember that every victory has a cost. Never forget the people who don't come home. Never forget what you're asking them to sacrifice. If you remember that, you'll never waste their lives on pointless battles." One evening, Captain, now promoted to Admiral, came to visit. They sat on his porch, watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "The war, the choices you made?" Jinwoo was quiet for a long time. "Every day. But I'd make the same choices again because they were necessary. That's the burden of command, living with necessary decisions that keep you awake at night." "The cadets call you a legend." "Legends are for stories. I'm just a man who learned to win when winning should have been impossible." He looked at her. "You're the fleet commander now. It's your job to make sure we never need another legend like me." Across the galaxy, the peace held. The Empire turned inward, using human medical technology to improve their citizens' lives. Trade flourished. Former enemies became cautious friends. But in military academies, officers still studied the campaigns of Jinwoo. They analyzed his tactics, debated his decisions, tried to understand how he had defeated them. And parents still told their children stories about the human warrior whose name had made their queen tremble. A reminder that sometimes the smallest force, driven by the greatest determination, can stand against any empire. On his farm, Jinwoo tended his garden and lived quietly. He had saved humanity twice. He had earned his peace. And if danger came again, if humanity needed him one more time, he would answer the call. Because that was who he was, not a legend, not a hero, just a human who refused to give up when giving up meant losing everything. The galaxy remembered, and the galaxy learned to respect humanity not for their strength, but for something more dangerous, their absolute refusal to be conquered. That was Jinwoo's real legacy, not the battles he won, but the lesson he taught the universe about human will.